Hello everyone, this is Ijaz Khan and today is our fifth lecture of Strategic Business Leader. Well, our today's topic is Porter Value Chain. But before we start this topic, let me give you a quick recap of what we have studied so far so that we have a connectivity between our previous lectures and our today's lecture. In the previous lectures, we were discussing the stages of strategic planning model proposed by Johnson, Scholes, and Whittington. And according to that particular model, strategic planning has 3 stages. In the first stage, we analyze a company's position, a company's strategic position against its environment. And there are 2 parts of this analysis. One is the internal analysis, and the other is the external analysis. In the external analysis, we scan the environment to identify to identify opportunities and threats for an organization, and also look at the factors at micro and macro level to see what changes we can have in the environment in the future. It is important for any organization to assess its external environment because it has to operate within a particular environment and it will be affected by the things happening in the environment. So we discussed pestle analysis, in which we were looking at different factors at macro level which might affect any company. So according to pestle analysis, there were multiple factors like political factors, economic factors, socio-cultural factors, technological factors, environmental factors, and legal factors. All these factors will have some effect on the organization in one way or the other. So for every organization, it's very important to look at these factors and to look at the changes happening in these areas before coming up with any particular strategy. We discussed that pestle analysis. Then we also discussed another macro level analysis model called Porter Diamond. And that Porter Diamond model was basically analyzing a nation's competitiveness compared with other nations. This analysis was particularly important for any organization which might be entering into any other country. According to this model, Porter has identified few of the factors which will give any nation a competitive advantage over the other. Few of those were land. For example, if any nation has natural resources or easy access to natural resources, they can use those raw materials which will be nearby their factory units, and they will have lower level of transportation costs. The raw material will be directly delivered to them, so there will be no commissions involved, and they will be able to gain those materials, natural resources, at a very lower cost than other nations. So they will have access to land, they will have access to capital provided by the governments, they will have access to skilled labor. So these factors will eventually give competitive advantage to one nation over the other. So again, why these factors are very important, because if any organization is planning to enter into any country for its operations, it must first look at those factors in that particular country so that it knows that whom they are going to compete in that organization, how powerful those organizations are when it comes to competing them. So because if they are not able to analyze this, they may come up with a strategy that may not be successful in that particular country. So this was Porter Diamond, a macro level analysis. Then we discussed another model which was basically a micro level analysis, and that was Porter Five Forces model, which was basically to analyze an industry position. It was actually looking at factors at the industrial level that might affect a company's strategy or company's performance. And the factors involved in this model were the threats of new entrants in the market. In any particular market, when you will be operating, you may have a high level of threat of new entrants, or you may have a low level of threats with regards to new entrants, depending on different factors we discussed earlier. And there will be a bargaining power of the suppliers, the bargaining power of the customers, the threats of new substitutes. So these were different factors according to Porter, which will have impact on company's success. So we discussed that as well. So these were all from external analysis point of view. Then we started the internal analysis. Why is it important to have an analysis about the internal environment of any organization? Well, a company may have strengths, it may have weaknesses. And strengths are the things that company can do better than its competitors, or it may be resources that may create difference between an organization and its competitors. It may have resources that may not be with other competitors. It may have competencies, it may have abilities, it may have the skills that no other organization in the competition may have. So every organization will have strengths and weaknesses. But if organizations fail to identify those strengths and weaknesses, they may not capitalize, or they may not exploit the strengths, and they may not be able to convert their weaknesses into strengths, because they will have no idea of what their weaknesses and strengths are. So it's very important for every organization to identify its strengths and weaknesses before it can come up with any strategy. So we discussed SWOT analysis for that. We discussed the difference between competencies and resources. We also discussed what is core competency, what is a threshold competency, what is a unique resource, and what is a threshold resource. So we discussed that part. We also discussed scenario analysis. Again, it was part of external analysis. So we were done with the external analysis, and we just started the internal analysis. Now we will be discussing another model to analyze the internal environment of any organization. And this particular model is called Porter's value chain. What is this model all about, and how useful it is? Well, before discussing this model in detail, we all buy products and services from different organizations. So let's take an example of a cell phone. When we buy a particular cell phone, for us, it's a single product. But when we look at it from a company's perspective, that product is actually a result of series of activities. A company performs different activities, and the result of these activities is a product or service that we buy. Porter value chain is basically the analysis of those activities, the chronological order of those activities, the result of which is actually a product or a service. This analysis is basically performed to identify the different activities that an organization performs in order to deliver a particular product or service. According to Porter, There are two basic categories of activities. One of the two is support activities and the other is called primary activities. Let's first discuss the types of these activities, and then we'll discuss why or how beneficial it is to use Porter value chain in strategic planning process. According to Porter, the primary activities start from inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and after sales services. These five are primary activities of any value chain. Then to support these activities, there will be support activities called firm infrastructure, human resource management, technology, and procurement. According to Porter, an organization performs these activities to deliver a particular product or service. And the quality of the product and service delivered by any organization will depend upon the quality of these activities performed. The better these activities, the better will be the product. So if you want to come up with a product that a customer needs, you will have to go through these activities. And it's very important for any organization to analyze these activities if they really want to improve the products. Now let's discuss about these activities in detail. Inbound logistics. Inbound logistics actually involve receiving raw materials, handling the raw materials. That is, when you receive the raw material, you will have to transfer it to storage department. You have to send them to the location they're supposed to be in, storing those inputs, which will involve warehousing, and the inventory management. All these are called inbound logistics. So you'll have to perform this primary activity, without which you won't be able to produce any product. Then comes the operations. For example, if we are a manufacturer, so the operations will basically be the production processes involved in producing a particular product. It will be the assembly process, it will be the finishing process, and so on and so forth. So all the operations involved in producing the final product will be called operations, and these will be the, again, it will this activity of producing the product will be a primary activity, because you can't come up with a final product without these operations. Then it will be the outbound logistics. The outbound logistics will be the storing of the finished product, the packaging, the testing, delivery, and distribution of the finished products to the customers. So it's basically all the activities involved from the end of the operations to the delivery of the product to the customers. These are called outbound logistics. Then comes the marketing and sales. In order to earn from the product, you'll have to do marketing so that more people know about your product and they start buying it. I don't think I need to explain this particular area in detail because it's a very general thing that you have to do marketing in order to earn from the product. And then once the product is sold and delivered, the after sales services will be provided to customers, and that will involve installing the product, repairing them in case any fault arises, if the product has a warranty, which usually companies these days provide, upgrading them, and providing spare parts to specific products like cars. In case of cars, you know that it's a very important area. It's a very important after sales service. So these were primary activities, and a company has to perform these activities if it wants to stay, and if it's of it or if it wants to operate. Then comes the support activities. The support activities are basically to support all these primary activities. Procurement, that is the purchasing of the raw material. Now you might be wondering that what's the difference between procurement and inbound logistics. Purchasing is the process of purchasing only. That is dealing with the suppliers. The process of purchasing from the suppliers, choosing the suppliers, buying from them, negotiations with the buyers. All these are the procurement activities. Once you're done with the purchasing part, then comes the delivery of the raw materials or the receipt of the raw materials from the supplier and bringing it to the storeroom, and then managing the warehouse, handling the raw material. And that particular area is called inbound logistics. The other support activity is the IT, information technology, and the technology development, the IT support, the IT services in an organization. Again, it's to support the other activities of any organization. HR, human resource management, recruitment, the training, the management, the development of the staff. So all these activities will be called as the HR activities, part of the support services. And then comes the firm infrastructure, which will involve the planning, the way the company plans, the budgeting process, the finance function, the quality control, and the overall corporate structure of the organization, the reporting line. All this will be part of the firm infrastructure. So these are support activities. Now let's go back to the diagram and let's see what's the use of porter value chain and how helpful it might be for strategic planning. Well, as I told you, that a product is actually the result of different activities that any organization performs. And the quality of the activities performed will actually decide the quality of the final product. Now let's take an example. Let's say if a company is feeling that its product is expensive and it is not able to compete in the market because of the high cost involved in producing the product. Now, what a company should do to find out why is the product expensive? Now, in this case, it will be very useful to use this portal value chain. It can actually go through all these activities, analyze these activities to find out whether these activities are required. Maybe the company is performing any activity that does not add any value to the end product. So if the company is able to find out a non-value adding activity, it will eventually be able to reduce its costs. So this is one of the ways that you can use porter value chain. Or maybe the activity is a value adding activity and you cannot afford to eliminate a particular activity. But maybe you are not performing that activity in the right way. Maybe there are very improved ways of performing the similar activity. Let us take an example. Maybe at the moment, you are handling the inbound logistics in-house. And because of having this inbound logistics in-house, maybe it's costly for you to do so. So you may start thinking of outsourcing it. And maybe by outsourcing your inbound logistics, you may be able to save costs. Similarly, you may outsource one of your operations. Maybe you don't have enough capability to perform a particular operation yourself, and you may find any other organization which may do the same operation for you at a very lower cost. But you can only reach to this conclusion of outsourcing when you'll be able to perform this activity analysis or porter value chain analysis. So that's why it's a very useful tool for strategic planning. Now, how we can use this inbound logistics, or how we can use the porter value chain to improve the quality of the product. Again, as I told you, that the way you perform these activities will actually define how you produce the final product. Let's say if you don't have a technologically updated assembly process, this will affect your ultimate product. Now, by analyzing your assembly activity, you may reach to a conclusion that you may have to update your machinery. And that updated machinery may have the ability to produce better quality products, may have the ability to produce the same products or assemble the same products at a very lower cost. So it will not only improve the quality of the product, it may also reduce the cost of the product. Similarly, you can analyze the outbound logistics, the way you do marketing. Like these days, maybe one of the companies may be using the old ways of marketing, giving newspaper ads or using television ads to market its products. Whereas we all know that these days, digital marketing is at its peak. And most of the organizations, they're moving towards digital marketing, which is less costly and more effective and more targeted. So basically, the porter value chain helps any organization to increase the value of its product by improving the quality of the product or by reducing the cost of the product. So by performing all these activities, a company has to spend cost. Whether it's inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, services, firm infrastructure, all the support activities, all of these will cost an organization. Now, once the company will be doing all these activity in the right way, what will happen at the end? Let's say it costs $50 per unit when a company performs all these activities. Now, the cost of the product will now be $50 after performing all these activities. Now, if you are doing these activities in the right way, all these activities will create value. And something that has cost you $50 will you will now be able to sell it for a higher price than its cost. Let's say you're now able to sell it for $70 each. So this $20 surplus is actually the margin for the organization. And this margin depends on the activities that an organization performs. This margin depends on the way those activities are performed. The higher will be the margin, when the better will be the activities. And these days, this portal value chain is gaining more and more importance as you're coming up with more complex products to compete in the market. If you look at the cell phones, to compete in the market, every cell phone manufacturer has to come up with more and more features. And when you're trying to come up with more and more features, definitely you'll have a very complex process involved, and that complex process will have multiple activities. So it's very important to analyze your activities to find out whether you are doing it the right way. You should bring innovation into the ways you're producing the products. So the basic, now let's just give me a quick sum up. The basic objective of a portal value chain is to increase the value by analyzing the activities. So this was portal value chain. And as I always say this, that you don't have to memorize any particular model. And it is least likely that the examiner will be asking you to use a particular model. It will purely be depending on the student, which model he or she feels will help them formulate the solution to a problem in the case study. So you may get hints in the question to use a particular model, but it won't be expressed in the question to use a particular model. How will you be able to identify which model will be the best in the case? Well, if you really want to know which model you should be using in the case study, you first have to look at the objectives of using a particular model, the usefulness of using a particular model, the areas where we can use a particular model. Like in this case, how will you find out when to use a portal value chain analysis? If you are supposed to come up with the solutions to reduce the cost, and you see different activities given in the question regarding a business process of production, of inbound logistics, of hiring, and other activities, this will be a sign that you'll have to use porter value chain, or you are being asked to suggest ways in which the company can increase the value it delivers to customer. Again, you may be required to use porter value chain. So you have to go through the case study carefully, and looking at the hints, you will be able to identify which particular model you have to use. So when we'll be going for solving the case studies at the end of the syllabus, we will be doing enough practice of identifying the relevant models. So let's now move towards our next topic, which is Porter's generic strategies. Well, according to Porter, there are 3 generic strategies which a company may use or may decide to have before it can come up with detailed strategy for any product or any service that is providing. These 3 strategies are cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. Well, let's look at this matrix proposed by Porter. Well, if you look at this matrix, it has sources of competitive advantage on x-axis and scope on the y-axis. According to Porter, what strategy you will be pursuing will depend upon these 2 factors, the scope and the source of competitive advantage. Let's say a company wants to compete in the market on the basis of its low cost structure, and it wants to keep its scope narrow, which means that it does not want to have same strategy for all of its products. Then according to Porter, it should have a cost focus strategy, that is applying or using low cost strategy for a particular product that it wants to use in order to compete in the market. But if the company wants to have the same strategy for all of its products, it means it has a broader scope. In that case, the strategy that it will be pursuing will be called cost leadership, which means that the company will gain the competitive advantage by producing low cost products. It will have activities, processes designed in such a way that result in lowest possible costs. And by doing this, it will be able to offer its product at a competitive price and still able to earn its profit margin, required profit margin, as it will be producing the product at a lowest cost possible. So it's basically that if a company wants to have a required margin or required profit under the cost leadership strategy, a company will be able to earn its minimum profit by producing the product at the lowest possible cost. On the other side, if it wants to compete in the market by offering a product or products with unique features that no other competitor is offering, it may have either differentiation focused strategy or it may have a differentiation strategy depending upon its scope. So let's say if a company wants to offer or wants to pursue a differentiation strategy only for a particular product or only for a particular market niche, then it will be pursuing differentiation focus, which means that it will be coming up with a particular product which will have unique features offered to a particular market segment. It may have other products in which it may have cost focused strategy. It may be competing in other products it may be competing in other markets on cost. But in this particular market, it may be offering unique products or products with unique features. One of the examples in this regards will be Samsung. If you look at the Samsung's product portfolio, you will see the Note series and the Galaxy S series targeting a particular niche market. The Note series and the Galaxy S series, they both are actually the high-end products offered to a particular class of customers. And in this particular market, the Samsung is actually applying differentiation focus as it is offering Galaxy S series or Note series with premium features and therefore charging higher prices for these products. At the same time, it also has other product range in which it competes the low-end mobile cell phones. And in that particular area, it follows cost focus as it tries to keep its costs as low as possible so that it can compete the lower end cell phones. Whereas if you look at the Apple strategy, it's purely differentiation strategy, because you won't see any Apple product with cost leadership or cost focused strategies. You will only see Apple offering premium services, offering premium features in its products, whether it's iPhone or it's MacBook Pro or it's the all-in-one PCs or it's any other product, you name it. It's following the differentiation strategy and it's offering all those products at higher prices. So according to Porter, a company cannot afford to stuck in between these strategies. It has to have a clear strategy of how it wants to compete in the market. So what is basically the cost leadership strategy? Well, a cost leadership strategy does not mean selling the products at a lower price. It's actually that the company wants to offer its products at competitive prices, and it also wants to maintain its minimum required profit. But how is it that possible? If you are offering your products at competing prices in the market and you still want to earn your required profit, the only way of doing it will be to reduce your cost, because you cannot increase your price as you're not offering premium features. Your strategy is not to offer premium features, maybe because you don't see people paying for that. So the only way to earn required margins will be to reduce your costs, and that's called cost leadership strategy. But the cost leadership strategy, in order to have a successful cost leadership strategy, a company needs to follow this strategy throughout its entire organization. Its inbound logistics should be cost effective. Its operations should be cost effective. Its outbound logistics should be cost effective. Its marketing strategies should be cost effective. Its after sales services should be cost effective. And support services should, all the support services should be cost effective. So across the organization, there should be one strategy, and that should be cost leadership. And it's the only way that you can have a successful cost leadership strategy. And I'll just give you an example. Let's say a company is offering lower end products in the market, so it cannot increase its prices. So in order to maintain its profit margin, it has to have a cost leadership strategy. Now, how this organization can pursue a cost leadership strategy when it comes to providing after-sales services. So you may remove, I'm just giving an example. It may not be the case every time, but I'm just giving an example. You may remove the warranty service from your product. So you may not offer the warranty service. So if you don't offer the warranty service, it will definitely reduce your costs. You may not have physical service centers. You may want to deal all the software related issues through remote technology. You may outsource your call centers to reduce your costs. You may use digital marketing to reduce your costs. So throughout the organization, you'll have to follow this cost leadership strategy if you really want it to be successful. On the other side, the product differentiation or the differentiation strategy is that if a company really wants to increase its, or if it really wants to earn its required profit margin, it will have to provide premium features, unique features, so that it can charge higher price to earn its required profit margins. Now, if we compare the cost structures of these two types of strategies, the cost leadership will have lower costs, whereas the product differentiation strategy will have higher costs. But they both can earn same profits if they apply these strategies effectively. In the cost leadership strategy, the price will be lower, but because of the lower costs, it will still have the same profit margins as the company having the differentiation strategy. Because in the product differentiation strategy, the costs will be high, but because of the higher prices charged, the profit margin can still be the same as in case of the cost leadership strategy. These both strategies will have, in order to have these both strategies successful, the approach should be applied across the organization. You cannot have your operations following the cost leadership strategy, whereas your marketing channels following the differentiation strategy. That is, you are using expensive marketing channels to market your product. It will mean that you have a misfit marketing strategy to support the cost leadership strategy. Similarly, in case of the product differentiation, you'll have to have the same approach across the organization if you really want the strategy to be successful. Now, if you look at this, the tip of in this topic, it's saying the same thing. Remember that the cost leadership is about minimizing the cost to the organization of delivering products and services. The price paid by the customer is a separate issue. So remember, this is a key point in the cost leadership strategy. Most of the students, they confuse it with pricing. As I told you earlier, that pricing is a separate thing. Offering a product at a lower price does not mean that you are pursuing a cost leadership strategy. Pricing is done after looking at the type of product that you're offering, the features that you are putting into the product, and your competition in the market. For example, if you are producing a product and that product is also offered by other competitors in the market, and let's say the product is being offered at a price of $10 per unit. So you don't have the option of charging higher price than $10. Now, if you want to be competing, if you want to compete in this market, you have to charge $10 per unit or lower than that. But that this does not mean that you are applying a cost leadership strategy. Though you may be charging a lower price than $10, but still it may be a product differentiation strategy. So charging a lower price than your competitor does not mean that you're pursuing a cost leadership strategy. It's a pricing strategy and not the cost leadership strategy. The cost leadership strategy is basically focusing on reducing the costs to earn the required profits. Whereas the product differentiation strategy is focusing on offering premium features so that you are able to charge premium price in order to earn your required profits. So the characteristics of the companies that successfully implement cost leadership strategy are they have access to capital needs to invest in technology that will bring costs down. A company which does not have enough capital to invest in technologies or efficient technologies will definitely have to spend more costs. And if they are spending more costs to produce the product, they cannot have a successful cost leadership strategy. They must have efficient logistics, whether inbound or outbound. They should have skilled labor who are more efficient. They use materials or they buy materials at lower prices. Their facilities, the facilities that they use should be low cost. So by and large, if a company has these features, they will be able to apply cost leadership successfully. Okay, let's move towards the factors that will make differentiation strategy as a successful strategy? Well, the key for this strategy will be research and development. If you want to offer unique features to your customers so that you can charge high prices, you will have to spend a lot on your research and development. Because this is the only way you can come up with unique and innovative features. So you have to spend a lot on research and development. I just came to know about Amazon. Do you people have any idea of how much Amazon spent last year on research and development? It spent around $25 billion on research and development. It's a quite huge amount. So you can imagine these high-tech companies, how much they will be spending on research and development. Then they must have the ability to deliver high quality or high-end products or services, because if they are not able to provide high quality products, they won't be able to charge high prices. Then they need to have effective sales and marketing, because if you have a good product, you need to have a good marketing strategy to sell it, to make people believe or to make people feel that they need that product which you are selling. So these were the characteristics or features that or the requirements for a particular strategy to be successful. So that's it. That was the generic strategies that any organization might pursue in order to be successful in the market. And it's very, very important for every organization to first identify its core way of competing in the market. Because you cannot have high cost structure and then charging lower prices to compete in the market. So you need to know what particular strategy are you pursuing. If you really want to charge high prices, you have to come up with high-end products with innovative features. And for that, you have to spend more costs. But if you really don't want to charge high prices, but still want to earn profit margins, then you have to reduce your costs. And this will be the only way to earn your required profits. That's it for today. We will continue discussing different strategies in our next session.